What is good, brothers and sisters? My name is Tim and welcome to my channel. Now if you're like me, maybe you spend a fair bit of time in isolation or traveling on your own, or maybe in times like these you're spending a little more time in isolation than you used to, and you want some new ideas with what to do with your time. And also if you're like me, video games just don't quite cut it and satisfy you like they used to. But you like problem solving, you like applying your brain to something, so today I'm going to hit you with my top 5 logic puzzles. Now if you're watching this video, you're probably already familiar with the classic Sudoku, the 9x9 box. We have to fill each 3x3 row and column with the numbers 1 to 9. Now all of these puzzles are on a similar theme of brain training and problem solving, where there's one unique answer. Now each puzzle that I mentioned, I'll link all the books that I use down below, and there's also app versions as well so you can play it on your phone. So let's get into it, shall we? Number 5, we start with Kurosu, or noughts and crosses. Very simple to play. You simply place noughts and crosses in each row and column of the grid so that there are the same number of noughts and crosses in each row and column. The same symbol can't occur in more than 2 consecutive squares, either horizontally or vertically. i.e. you can't get 3 noughts in a row or 3 x's in a row. As with all these puzzles, they're all solved logically and there's no guessing necessary. Now what I like about Kurosu, it's quite an easy one to get involved in, really easy to understand, and you can plug in and plug out without too much strain on the brain. There's also only a limited number of patterns to look out for, and it scales up quite gently. Number 4, KAKURO, also called cross sums. Now KAKURO is considerably harder than Kurosu, and the puzzles are number puzzles solved in a crossword style grid. The number above the diagonal line represents the total sum of the squares to the right of it, and the number below the diagonal line represents the total sum of the squares below it. Just like Sudoku, the squares contain the numbers 1 to 9 and they can't have repeating digits. Once again, all of them have unique solutions and can be solved without any guessing. This one involves quite a lot of simple mathematics. I really like this one. It feels very satisfying as it starts to fill up, and eventually you work it out and it gets to the end where there's quite a nice snowball effect where everything starts to cross over and one thing works the next thing out and the next thing out, as long as you put in the working as you go. Number 3, Futoshi Key. Now this one is quite a bit different than all the others. Now depending on what book or app you're playing, Futoshi Key goes from a 4x4 grid up to 9x9, or I'm sure it goes beyond that as well. Now apparently Futoshiki from Japanese literally means not equal, also known as Futoshiki, unequal. Just like with Sudoku, you place the numbers of the given range in the grid of whatever size grid you're doing, such that every row and column contains each number just once. Now the inequality constraints must be satisfied, so like in maths you have the greater than symbol, and the open end of the sign donates the bigger number. There's something I really like about these, working with the greater than symbol and not having the limited boxes and columns like in Sudoku. For me it works best if I really show my working as I go and do all the little numbers to show what can and can't be in the box, and I cross out as I go to help solve it. And I think they scale up in difficulty well, because sometimes they either scale by bigger grids, which gets harder very quick, or you just get a lot less symbols to work with. I know I've called this a top 5, but really the top 3 are all equally enjoyable for me, and at different times I like to play different ones. So this is like a joint one, Futoshiki. Number 2, Hidato, is a true logic puzzle solved by careful thought and determination. No guesswork is necessary and no maths is involved in this one. To solve these puzzles, fill the grid with consecutive numbers that connect horizontally, vertically or diagonally. It's easy to learn, difficult to master. Hidato will keep your mind sharp and entertain you for hours. Now Hidato is sometimes called number chain or connect numbers, and you simply connect the numbers from the number 1 to the final number on the grid, and every number has to be connected either horizontally, vertically, or it can be connected diagonally, and you've got to get an unbroken chain from 1 to the finish. This is one that I find the most relaxing out of all of these, and I like to do it before bed. And in terms of difficulty, it never really gets crazy hard. You just get a bigger grid with more numbers, but each one that you solve as you go, it's the same logic, and it's, yeah, like I say, it's very soothing and it relaxes me. That could easily be my number 1. It depends what mood I'm in and how I'm feeling, but definitely joint first. Numero 1, from the Sudoku family. I sort of had to give it to this. I do enjoy it. Number 1, Killer Sudokus, is like a Sudoku except none of the numbers are filled in when you start, and it's sort of a cross hybrid between Sudoku and KAKURO. The goal of Killer Sudoku is the same as with regular Sudoku, and you've got to fill every row, column in 3x3 box with the numbers 1 to 9. But what you do have with killer Sudoku that's different from Sudoku is a cage with a little number that is the total sum of the numbers in that cage. And as well as respecting the normal rules of Sudoku of no number repeats in the row, column and box, also in the cage no number repeats as well. So it's similar to KAKURO in the way that you have the sums that you must equate to. And for example, if you have a 3 in a cage with between two numbers, you know that there's a 2 and a 1 to make that 3. And if you have a 4, you know that's a 3 and a 1, because you can't have a 2 and a 2, as that would be repeating 2s. So there's certain logic patterns that you start to recognize. Another example would be if you've got a 24 number around the cage of 3 numbers, then you know that's a 987, because no other numbers can add up to that. Just like with 23, you know that's a 986. So with these little patterns of logic that you start to recognize, as well as knowing that the numbers 1 to 9 in any box is always going to equal 45, in every row it's 45, and every column is 45, that's where the game starts and the fun begins. Killer Sudoku can be quite hard, depending on what difficulty obviously you try. In the beginning, you start to recognize the patterns and build from there. But it's one of those where you hit a dry patch and you'll leave it till later that day or the next day, and I'll come back to it and I'll quickly pick up and start to move forward with the puzzle again. What I do like about it the most, I think, is why I've put it at number 1. As long as you're writing little annotations and notes and keeping the little numbers below of what each box could be, towards the end it starts to get this really nice snowball feeling where everything starts to fill up and you suddenly complete it, and the end of it becomes quicker than the start, which is kind of the joy of Sudokus. I think that's one of the main joys that people enjoy, is as it starts to fill up and you start to finish it, and that snowball feeling at the end. Out of all the logic puzzles that I like to play with, this one gives me the feeling the most. And that is it, folks. Thank you for joining me for my top 5 logic puzzles. There are others that I've not mentioned that I like to play, like Jigsaw Sudoku, but if there's any others that you like to play that I've not mentioned, please hit me up and let me know in the description down below. And I'd hope you go and check out one of these games, if not more of them, that might have resonated with you. As I mentioned, there are app versions of these games, but for me, I prefer pen and paper. I'm working my way through a book as I go, so as I mentioned before, I'm going to link all the books that I'm using and playing down below. And if you'd like to see more content from me, I'm putting up at least 2 videos a week at the moment, including live chat, exclusively for my YouTube community, which I'll link down below as well. If you want to join me, I'll see you there. Godspeed.